Welcome to the Sensible Center podcast, where two middle-aged guys drunkenly talk politics and political reform. Grab an adult beverage and enjoy the show. Further information can be found at sensiblecenterpack.com. You can reach us at sensiblecenterpack@gmail.com or follow us on X at USASCPack. Hey, Bob.
Kevin, how you doing?
All right. You back from fishing?
I'm back from fishing. I'm refreshed, regenerated, and ready to go.
So you don't bring like a cooler of, what do you usually catch? Pike and
bass and bluegill and
you don't
crappie
keep any of that? Because Deb was asking. She's like,
nope. I throw everything back.
You know, some of the photos were like, it would be hard to like not mount one of those. You've never done that?
No, I caught what I would consider a trophy pike, around 42 inches.
Yeah, it's on one picture that looked pretty big.
Went back in the lake. No, once in a while, if I'm going to have a fish fry that day, I'll clean some fish and I'll fry them up, and that's it. I don't like killing them. It's just, I enjoy eating. I don't like killing them. I think we've had this conversation on the podcast.
Yep.
I don't like to step on a spider even. I just, I guess.
Who would have figured? But our listeners are probably, shocked that you have that kind heart in you of all animals, big and small.
I'd rather enjoy, putting hooks in their mouths. But I don't care to kill them. Went up there, had fun, caught some fish, saw some family, and it was an adventure.
The weather was good?
The weather was great. It's in the upper 80s for the first 3 or 4 days, and then it was mid-70s the rest of the week. It was fantastic.
Yeah, it's been beautiful up here the last couple of weeks. I was worried about the summer, but it's shaping up. The last couple of weeks have been very nice. And listeners, in case you haven't noticed, there's nothing going on in the political world, so we're just going to talk fishing and upper Midwest weather, summer weather, right, Bob?
Maybe a little bit of Tennessee weather.
Maybe a little bit of Tennessee weather too. We'll throw that in there.
It was hot and dry for 2 months. It didn't rain here, and then all of a sudden, since I got back, it's rained every day.
Oh,
my yard needs it.
Was it getting dry?
Yeah, just the trick is to wash your car every day, and it'll rain every day. Good.
That's the formula.
You got it.
The Native Americans used to do rain dances. See how quickly I changed that?
That's
canceled.
I tried the rain dance thing.
Yeah.
And ambulances kept showing up at my house because my neighbors thought I was crazy.
Well, you're not supposed to do it naked, Bob.
Well,
you would like to do the authentic.
I had my "Make America Great Again" hat on. I wasn't exactly naked.
That's nice. And also, listeners, this is the second podcast Bob and I have done this week. We're going to be on another podcast where we were interviewed, right, Bob?
We were.
It was the Curious Professor podcast.
That was fun. Which
will come out shortly, and we'll put that out there so everyone can listen to that. Yeah, it was a good time. I think it's interesting, and we'll be having probably a guest next time related to that podcast. So good things coming up. But I think some things have happened since we last spoke, Bob.
Yeah. First, I just want to say I'm here for my congratulations on predicting that Biden would not be in the election.
All right, you're going to rub it in my face. All right, you're going to rub it in my face.
And political oracle.
You actually, I was thinking about it. I'm like, I'm not going to bring it up because I didn't want to give you credit. But you actually said, I don't think either of them are going to be.
Yeah.
I think at one point, and, you came a hair's breadth away, right?
Yep, you got it.
Although, we could talk about it, but it would have been, I was thinking about it. Nobody's really talked about what would have happened had, Trump actually, been murdered. Or assassinated. I've never heard anyone discuss that angle. I guess it's not probably proper. But it's kind of an interesting scenario, right?
With my father talking about that,
Oh, you did?
I think we both came to the conclusion that probably nothing would have happened. I just don't see conservatives acting that way.
You mean from like a revolt or some type of civil unrest,
right? Exactly.
I was thinking more from a political basis, like what would the party have done? And we could go into it further, but let's cover the shooting first, since that kind of happened shortly after our last podcast. So a surprise, right? I think I found out through you. We were at some event, and I think you might have texted me, and then I jumped online or something like that.
Yeah, I tried calling you 3 times nonstop. I
Oh,
was like,
that's
all right,
right.
third time's the charm. And you didn't answer. I was like, yeah, all right. I was on my way to dinner or something, an early dinner. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we were setting up the karaoke for our community karaoke fest, and which didn't turn out well because we were supposed to have it by the pool, and then it was torrential rain like an hour before. But a good group of people showed up in the clubhouse, so we were singing. We made the best of it. But so I mean, I mean, I guess there hasn't been an assassination attempt since Reagan, right? I mean that's kind of a long stretch. I remember that assassination. That was the day of my confirmation with Catholic Catholic confirmation. I remember it vividly.
8th grade.
People were coming over. Um, I remember people were coming to the house and everyone was watching it on TV. Confirmation was at night. I think he was shot like in the afternoon or something after a speech. But it's crazy that that wasn't 50 years ago. When was it? 80, 82, 83, something like that. It was fairly early in his first term, right?
It was.
So yeah, it's probably 80, 82, 81 maybe even. Um, so it's been a long time. Prior to that, the '60s, there were quite a few assassinations. Um, so it was sort of left field. We could get into the Social Security, Secret Service thing, and the miss, but it always amazes me, given the level of talk and the amount of guns in this country, that this doesn't happen more often than it does. I mean, are you of the same opinion? Because when you think about it,
It's
it's
rare.
hard. Yeah, it's hard. I was saying, I went to the Trump rally in December. They did have Secret Service there. You did go through a metal detector, but in some ways, I felt I was more screened going into a concert than standing within probably 50, 60 feet of him at a small convention center in Iowa.
Yeah.
So I was sort of surprised that it wasn't as tight as it was. Um, so,
In my mind, I'm of the belief. I shouldn't say the belief. In my mind, I've thought, and I did pose that question to myself. Why doesn't this happen more? And I think I've just kind of always been lulled by the fact that I thought, well, the Secret Service is there and they're doing a good job. And obviously, in this case, they didn't. And it makes you question whether or not they're truly incompetent or this was a single case issue or what the situation was. But the other piece to it is the perception among people that the Secret Service is there and they do a thorough job, I think probably would keep some people away. And the thought that the chances of success are extremely low. That's what I think. But you've got a great point. Why doesn't it happen more? With all the opportunity out there.
yeah, I mean, he's doing these outdoor rallies, right?
Yep.
It's got to be hard to control. These guys are out there all the time amongst thousands of people. There's only so many resources. Clearly, they have local police and all of that, but it's
The
sort of
thing is, it probably most even slightly trained shooters probably could easily hit a target from 400 to 500 yards, maybe 6 or 7, right?
right.
This kid was what, 150, maybe 200
150
yards
yards.
away?
Yep.
That's mind blowing to me. I mean, that's just, how does that happen, right?
Well, that's the thing. So, some of my questions is, and we never hear about it. So, how many times do they catch somebody like that, right? I mean, does that happen often where things go well, they identify the person brings the rangefinder, they follow them, they
Yep.
arrest them and take them away, nobody's the wiser, right?
That's right.
So how many times does that happen? Or does it, like you said, is it more of the deterrent that people don't even bother? But we don't know those answers, right? I'd like to know those answers. And then the fact that in this case, it's just so perplexing which then we could get into the conspiracy theories about it. But it's just perplexing how this kid did so many things that should have raised triggers and
Yep.
should have been prevented so much earlier in the process.
And then some of the when Ray and when what's her name, Cheadle,
Yeah.
showed up to Congress, I mean they kind of admitted that some of the stuff, like he was on their radar. They knew he was there.
Yeah. They did.
They were taking pictures of him. They considered him suspicious.
So how does he end up on a roof with people videoing him
with a rifle,
police officers
and his own ladder,
actually going up? Right? I mean, thought we heard a police officer actually sort of approached him on the roof, right? At some point, at least I think I heard that.
That's what I read.
How does all that happen, and then he still gets off a shot or 5 shots or whatever it was?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just an astronomical. I mean, miscommunication. I'm guessing it sort of reminds me of 9/11, but even more sort of obvious because the lights are blinking right at that point, and then it's just a matter of getting through the channels of communication and getting the people to coordinate to take care of it, right?
Again, like the Secret Service knew he was there. Before that, I guess the police offered them drones. They turned it down.
Yeah, and surprisingly, the kid had a drone that he was flying over before.
Right.
It's like, you can't make this stuff up, right?
Right.
He had a drone, and then the actual law enforcement did not.
It's unbelievable. The failure at so many levels, and I don't think, just like everything else, we're not going to get any real answers. So, the other assassination attempts, it lines up so similar to like JFK, for instance, right?
Yeah, and then
he's dead before he can answer for anything. No internet history in this case. It's wiped. And then, there's all kinds of conspiracy theories online. With online these days, you don't know exactly what you can believe, but there's some guy out there who makes a business of tracking cell phones and things, who says they've tracked people to this kid's house, and the people that have been at this kid's house also spend time at FBI offices and other places in Washington, D.C. Why? Whether or not that's true or it's online rumors or whatever, but it's very interesting.
Well, the thing is, like I said, not having answers about these things and the incredible nature of it,
and
that just opens the doors to people speculating in a total distrust in these institutions, which I hate to see because I'm generally not a conspiracy theorist. But when you start putting things together, you're like, how did this happen? I mean,
when my jaw really dropped was when the next day when the director of Social
Security.
Yeah, same thing probably.
Might have been more qualified to stop it, right?
Secret Service says we didn't have that roof covered because it was sloped and it was dangerous.
Right. The kid had no problem with it.
Right. Well, and the guy who got the kid was on a roof that was probably a pitch 4 times to the one the kid was on. You know what I mean?
It didn't look that sloped to me.
And then the very building that kid was on, just underneath his feet, was full of the Secret Service people that were there to protect Trump.
Did you hear a noise on the roof?
It's probably nothing.
It's probably squirrels.
Yeah.
You can't make it up. I mean, you literally can't make it up.
The incompetence is so bad if you just believe.
But then again, here you go. If they were truly so incompetent, why does it happen more often, right?
Right.
And maybe it will now because people will be like, "Oh, this is." if your theory proves correct, they haven't been doing it because they're like, "Oh, these guys are good. There's no way I'm going to get away with it." We'll see. I guess. I hope that's not the case, but I always give these professionals the benefit of the doubt because it's a tough job, and you're only gonna hear about it when they mess up, right? How many thousands of times which I think, like I said, it would be good to know all the cases where they've prevented it, or have we just gotten lucky over time,
If I was them, I'd probably come out with those examples sooner than later, you know what I mean?
I mean,
now.
Just to build trust back in the institution and yeah, because when you look at the facts of this one, you're like, oh boy.
Yep. It's either one or the other. It's extreme incompetence or they knew something. And and then you get into the conspiracy land, and the incompetence is so extreme. It's almost hard to believe they could possibly be that incompetent.
Right, you have the conspiracy that it's the deep state, and like you said, the FBI might have taken him out here or whatnot, and then you have the conspiracies on the other side that this is faked by the Trump organization to get sympathy for him and whatnot. So either way, it opens it up, right? Because people are like, none of this makes sense.
It doesn't make sense.
So a couple things other I wanted to touch on this. Do you believe this was political violence? Because everyone, all the media started talking about it sort of as such, just with the assumption that if you're taking out a presidential candidate, I guess it's political violence. But I look back on John Hinckley. I don't think that was political violence. I think he was delusional. He had the whole Jodie Foster thing,
Yep.
taxi driver, whatnot. I think he wanted to. I think Reagan was obviously the most famous person in the world, and similar to Trump here. So, to me,
Yeah,
I
I need more
political.
evidence to make that
Okay.
decision. I've seen some things online, but it's hard to say what's real and what's not because it's coming from Reddit and Twitter and those sort of places. There's nothing really officially in the news about it, if you can even believe news organizations nowadays. We'll get into Kamala later. But I was reading this morning. Supposedly, the social media site Gab found an account that they think was the shooters, and he made some statements, in support of Biden and Biden's policies, arguing with somebody. And then, of course, there's the stories out there of him having donated to Act Blue.
Right.
That doesn't necessarily mean anything. It doesn't mean it was politically motivated because there's not a lot else out there, right? He didn't. There's not a manifesto, unless there is, and we don't know about it. There's not.
Yeah, I mean, there you go, back into the distrust of institutions. So
Yep.
if there is something out there, are we going to find out about it, right?
Yep.
Again, I generally trust that we will, that there's not some big conspiracy cover-up, but the more we don't hear things, right, the bigger the vacuum is for everyone to fill it in with other stuff. And unfortunately, I don't think that's a good thing for the country or, or anyone in general. So I'm glad you're not jumping to the conclusion that it's political violence. Then another thing it's sort of unrelated to this, but what do you think of, just because they call him President Trump, right? What do you think? And I have it's not because it's Trump. I think any former office holder should not be called by that name, right? I don't even like when they say, you don't have a problem with that.
No.
Because I have a huge problem, and I'm surprised you don't. Because to me, that's a title. It has nothing to do with the person. It's the office.
Former president would probably be more appropriate.
Yes, I'm fine with former president, but they never do that.
I guess
or rarely do that.
They do that with senators and representatives, right? You don't hear somebody calling senator. It's former senator.
I think they go back and forth. I would say I hear, like, if you're a former cabinet person, like, they'll call her Secretary Clinton.
Yeah,
I'm like, that's not our position. Or even not even in the political realm, like coaches, right?
Yeah.
They'll still call, a guy commentator, when Ditka's on TV, they'll still call him coach. Unless he's coaching. I just don't understand that. And especially in the political realm where we're a country that it gets into the term limits, it gets into the entitlement thing.
Respect the position, but not the
not the person. Right.
Them.
It doesn't attach to the person.
Yeah.
It's an office, it doesn't attach to the person. When they're in there, that's their job. When they're out, they don't get the title doesn't transfer, right? If you're working for a company, somebody's still not going to call you by your last title in the company, right? No.
No.
So that's just something I've been thinking about, especially as they've been talking about it. But it sounds like you don't have as much as a problem as I
Yeah,
do.
I don't. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. You know, I mean, it's kind of like somebody who's referred to as doctor, but they're not really a medical doctor. They're like a doctor of, I don't know, geology. You know, is that should that person be
Well,
referred to as doctor?
well, that's yes. I mean, that's a degree that that's an attainment, it's a certificate or whatever that they've gathered. It's not positional related. They've kind of done it independently outside of that.
Yeah,
But
um,
we don't have to get into that any
yeah,
further. I just was kind of
we
bringing that up on the
we got
slide.
plenty to talk about other than pick at that.
So
I guess. Yeah,
so
you're right.
after the murder, I mean not the murder, the assassination attempt. Why did I say murder? Um, oh, what are you drinking, by the way? Considering.
I'm going with just a Buffalo Trace tonight, actually.
Oh, going simple.
Yeah, it's simple and 90 proof. I wanted to stay away from the barrel strength stuff. I've been trying to limit my alcohol intake lately.
Oh, really?
Just a little.
All right. Don't go overboard with that.
Yeah, I don't want to go overboard with it.
Uh, in honor of JD Vance, who we'll talk about next, I am drinking, trying to finish off this bottomless. I've been trying to clean out the bar for a while, and just like the cinnamon blast Captain Morgan's that took me like 3 months to get through. Now I'm working through the old smoky moonshine, which seems to be a bottomless. I think they put them in mason jars, right?
Yep.
I'm hoping to finish it off tonight, but that's in honor of J.D. Vance because he's a hillbilly, I guess, who went to Yale.
I
So
know, yeah, I know not too much about that guy. All I can say is yes, I know he went to Yale, and that makes me distrust him a bit.
well, I did read his book like before he became a politician because I was getting into reading about the opioid crisis and whatnot, and that was kind of a logical extension of that. I think the book came out in 2015, maybe, before Trump's first run. I mean, interesting story. Clearly came from a poor background. So Trump announced him like a couple days after he got shot, which is sort of amazing, right? Just how quickly all those events came together. My initial take was surprise. I think it was a mistake. Because I flipped to Fox shortly after the announcement, and they were sort of hedging a little bit. I think they were caught off guard by it. I mean, his name was in the mix, right?
Yep.
There was, I guess, at the end there was Rubio, Burgum, Doug Burgum from North Dakota, I believe. And
Vivek.
then Vivek was kind of in there. That Elaine Stefanik from New York, and then yeah, Rubio. In regards to Rubio, you sent me back why Gavin couldn't become the vice president. There is something in the Constitution that say the president and vice president can't be from the same state. It's something I never realized, but when Trump started talking about Rubio, that raised the problem there. It was being considered. I don't know if one of them were going to move or they were going to challenge it, but I read the part of the Constitution. It's kind of clear that they can't be from the same state.
That's interesting.
Before I think the Constitution was actually it used to be where the vice president was the person who got the second amount of votes, like back in the day, like old school. Which then created some interesting dynamics. And then I think they figured out that probably wasn't the best way to go because you have political rivals, right? Typically,
Right.
occupying the two offices, which I think happened between Adams and Jefferson. If I remember, those two weren't too friendly because I think Jefferson was Adams' vice president. Is that right? Oh, don't look that up, people. Burr got in there at some point, but I thought Burr was Jefferson's maybe. I got to go see that play Hamilton again for my American history lesson.
Take a
That,
nap.
well, plays, musicals and Schoolhouse Rock is how I learned all my American history.
I Schoolhouse Rock, I remember quite a bit. I remember watching that
See,
every day.
that was very
Yeah.
effective, wasn't it, for how a bill becomes a law and all that stuff?
It was.
Yeah, I
It
thought
was.
it was. It's pretty
I like the
good.
Lincoln movie too, but I'm not so sure much of that was really that well rooted in history.
That's right. Who needs to read when you got all that stuff? So anyway, back to JD.
Although
So-
that Mel Gibson patriotic movie, I'm sure was accurate.
You know it was. So JD, were you surprised? I know you were a big Vivek. You were still you were on
Yeah.
the Vivek train till it fell off the rails.
Yeah, I liked him. He was probably my favorite candidate. Again, I didn't know much about JD, so I would say I was a little bit surprised. And then I started kind of reading about him initially, and I was like, I don't know about this guy. Why did he pick this guy? And it came down to Ohio, I think, right? Ohio's an important state for him.
Yeah,
Not
but
just Ohio,
Ohio's-
but it's his relationship with the unions and the blue collar. If you think about the Midwest and like Pennsylvania, Rust Belt, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin. That's why I picked him.
Yeah, but I don't think JD would be senator if it wasn't for Trump. So it's kind of a vicious cycle too, right?
yeah.
Because I don't think he would have won on his own. So
And I'm not.
I don't know
convinced
what
that
he's
the guy
adding
is-
to Trump.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't know who he is, right? And I don't.
Right.
He's got so many conflicting stories on him. It gives me the impression, anyway, that I kind of go which way the wind blows, sort of thing. That's
Well, he was-
turning to me.
He was clearly anti-Trump.
Yeah, sure was.
I mean, that's not a conspiracy or a rumor. I mean, they've got him on record. I haven't gone back to kind of trace what his thought process was for that huge flip from being Trump. I think he implied that he was Hitler and dangerous for the country during the 2016 race. How do you get to then be vice president is the question. But given that Trump's going to be the oldest candidate for president ever, to pick somebody who's been in Senate for 2 years and held no other office, I think is a risk, right? Besides all the other stuff that we could get into that now he's getting blowback on. I thought about it today. I wouldn't put it past Trump to trade him out.
I don't think he can.
Really?
'Cause
Once
I
he's
was
got the
wondering-
nominee? Really?
Yeah, I think once the nomination is done, and I don't think he can. I think it's done.
Unless he just resigned from it, right?
Yeah, he'd have to
Sort
say
of,
no. And Trump
sort
could
of
put pressure on him.
pull a Biden.
But I mean, Trump can't do that either. He can't force him to resign. He
Well,
would
he
look
just
terrible for the campaign.
He just needs to get Chuck Norris to call him. No, is Chuck Norris the George Clooney of the the Republican Party, or is it Kid Rock or Hulk Hogan? Who would
Oh,
call
geez.
JD Vance to get him to drop?
Yeah, it's a good question.
It might be Tucker.
Yeah, it could be Tucker.
It could be Tucker. Who's got the weight in the Republican? So anyway,
Who else is from Ohio that could do it?
right. So yeah,
Dave Chappelle
I
called him up.
I just think I think honestly, just reading some of the background, I think Trump was going to go with Burgum, which sort of would make sense because it sort of probably remind him of the Pence pick, even though that didn't end up turning out well. It did win him the election at that point, right? Sort of a governor, kind of a faceless governor that he can, demand loyalty from, but that has some legitimacy, right? And some executive experience, which was kind of Pence's role. Plus, Pence had the evangelical, the religious part. I don't know if Burgum brings him that. I don't know that much about Burgum, but I was leaning. I think his sons talked him into JD. It sounds like, because
That could be. Yeah, Don Jr.'s a friend of his.
Yeah, and they both have those beards. So
Yeah. Similar age.
I heard someone, I don't know if it was on the Daily Show or something, refer to as J.D. Vance as the poor man's Ulysses S. Grant or something. Because he had the beard and he sort of looks like Ulysses S. Grant. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see how that turns out. Obviously, there's a lot of other things, but I just thought that was kind of an interesting pick for Trump, and maybe an error that he didn't need to make. But we'll see. So then, shortly after that was the RNC. I don't know how much of that, because you were up in Minnesota for the RNC, right?
I was.
So you probably weren't gathered around the TV every night.
I watched the Trump night kind of from around Hulk Hogan, about a little over halfway, probably three-quarters into Trump's speech before I fell asleep. Literally, I fell asleep. Yeah, that's about it. I don't think I watched a lot of the other speeches, or I just read commentary and things like that on it.
Yeah, I watched a little bit every night, and then more kind of the last night with the Trump, because I knew it probably would be pretty kind of funny and interesting, and it was, until he started talking. that I think I fell asleep, and most of the nations fell asleep. They kept on like saying this was the best. Even the media, even like CNN and MSNBC were talking about the enthusiasm and how this was an unusual convention and people were into it. But to me, it just, they would pan the crowd and it looked like a good Tuesday night at the Villages down in Florida, right? It's just like 60 to 70-year-old white people dancing and trying to dance. They had a band there like all 4 nights who I guess, same band playing like 70s rock and roll and country and whatever. They weren't bad, but it was just interesting to have a live band. I don't think I've ever seen that at a convention where they have a rock band playing.
Yeah. The Kid Rock thing was a bit awkward, I think.
You think?
Old people trying to figure out how to dance to Kid Rock. It's kind of interesting, right? Just a weird place to have it, but Trump was trying to put on a show and a spectacle, and I think probably did that.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever going to look cool and not be awkward, but I think it appealed to who they needed to appeal to, I guess. Yeah, that last night rolling out Hulk Hogan, which, just to let you know, Hulk kept on saying real Americans in his speech, and I'm like, that's a strange thing to say, real Americans, right? Although you hear it now and again. And then I saw online, like a couple days later, him pitching at Walmart. I guess he's involved in real American beer, which he probably came up with after the Bud Light thing, I'm guessing.
Probably.
So he was
marketing his
product during the speech, which is just classic, right?
Yeah.
So then they had him. Did you see Rudy falling in the aisle? Did you see that?
I did not see that.
Oh yeah, Rudy took almost a header down
Was he drunk or just tripped?
Well, they said it was uneven carpeting, but
uneven. Okay.
It didn't look. Look it up online. I was going to send it.
Sure, it wasn't like Joe, like with his hair dyed, just trying to do some reconnaissance.
It sort of had that look to it. Have you seen Trump golfing with the U.S. Open winner Bryson DeChambeau? That came out this week.
I saw one swing, and Trump had a great swing. I saw that, and that's all I've seen. Yeah.
Interestingly, so they were golfing at his course in Bedminster. It's worth watching because they go hole to hole. They have a golf cart cam, right? So I'm recommending it to the listeners, whether you like Trump or not. That made me turn it off when I was watching, so I gotta finish. But
he does seem a little on edge about Trump right now. He's
a
little scared, a little nervous.
Just a little bit. So I gotta be careful with my viewing habits. I might have to go into my bunker through the election. But it's an interesting video. What my take is, there was a couple of funny things. He sort of plays old man golf. His swing looks like an old man, but he can hit it. His drives are definitely good. They played off the front tees, which was sort of funny because I'm guessing DeChambeau could probably hit it farther than anyone else on the tour. I'm sure you don't know that, not being a golf guy, but he's one of the hardest hitters. So they didn't play from the front tees for him, but I assume it's plus because Trump doesn't hit it that far. And how I knew that was Trump teed off one. They were playing where they were using the best ball, which is how you kind of do it in a kind of skins game. If you're playing, they were trying to break 50 for 18 holes. So, anyways, Trump hits the drive and says, and Bryson drove the hole. It was like a 320-yard hole. Trump said, "Oh, I hit a drive. I'm probably 50 yards away." It turns out he was like 100. They ended up using. I don't think he thought they were going to use his ball, but when they did, you found
Yep.
out how far he hit it. But I got to give it to him. He's a good. That's a sort of surprisingly. He's a
hits
good
the
golfer.
ball
He's a
further
good
than I
golfer.
can, that's for sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
he's a good golfer. I'm almost. I would love to have seen him and Joe golf, but I'm guessing he probably would have beat Joe. I mean, the guy owns golf courses, so
Joe can't walk, and
Right.
I'm not picking on the guy, but Joe can't walk, let alone hit a golf ball. And like I said, I can hardly hit a golf ball. I'll go to the driving range once in a while, but I can't.
So being 78 or whatever he is, he's sort of an amazing physical specimen that he's able to. I mean, he's never had a drink, right? Supposedly, and never done drugs. He's probably eaten a lot of McDonald's and KFC over the time, but he's none the worse for wear for it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean the guy, he is a little hefty. He probably doesn't eat all that healthy, but even you see him at some formal events and he's got a glass of wine in front of him. I've never seen him take a sip out of it, whether or not he does, but I've seen him sitting with a glass of wine in front of him before.
Yep. So yeah, I gotta hand it to him. He amazingly came across as a. It sort of reminded me of the North Korea when they talk about Kim Jong Un or his father golfing, and he's every shot's like a hole type of thing.
Yeah.
But Trump actually sort of does it.
So that's, he exaggerates, he's
Yeah.
a bit pompous, whatever you want to say. Overall, I honestly believe Trump's a pretty good guy. You read these stories about paying
Oh,
off people's
what you talking about,
mortgages,
Bob?
paying off people's mortgages, buying them surgeries if they need it, donating money here or there, not telling anybody about it, comes out in the news. I think overall, he didn't get us in any wars. Tried to reach out, build a bridge with North Korea, other countries, but he's also been pretty firm and been pretty honest, telling countries like Iran, if you continue to do this, you're going to have a problem. And they did, right? Took out Soleimani.
Well, he's the nominee now.
It's going to be.
So let's turn to Joe. Get off Trump and turn to Joe. So then we had Joe. So I guess the rumors started sort of during the convention that there was going to be some decision or something was going to be announced. I guess it was this Sunday, right? Just a couple days ago, right?
Yep.
Seems like a month ago by now, right? All this happened in such a short time, but it seemed like so much has happened. So, what do you think happened? Did you watch Joe's speech last night from the Oval Office?
No, I did not.
No, it's not worth watching. Again, the Democrats missed an opportunity for whatever reason. Didn't provide any answers to anything, right? It's like, what do they think? What do they think the American people want to hear? You think they want to hear kind of just like generalized whatever? The guy dropped out of the race and endorsed as vice president, right? I want to know, number one, why did he run, right, in the first place? 2, why did he drop out now? 3, why does he think endorsing Kamala and having her sort of blessed as the candidate is the right thing to do, right? Those are the 3 answer questions I want to. So did something change from the time in December or whenever, November last year, when you decided to run to now? What was that change, right? what happened, and why should we back Kamala? Why, as I've been told by many people, well, the people voted for Biden. They didn't vote for Kamala, and now Kamala's the candidate, right?
Yep.
So
Yes,
you need to make people
it's the third
comfortable with
primary
that.
in a row where
Right.
voters haven't really got a clear choice.
Three.
Either the party forces people to drop out early, which seems to happen, or this, right? You'd think the party of democracy would want to give the people a little bit more choice.
Well, we could get into the primary system. Maybe we do that now. I have a problem with the primary system in general. The history of it is presidential primaries are pretty recent. It's like a my lifetime type of thing. Before, the parties used to kind of decide amongst the party leaders who the candidate was, right? You agree with that, right?
Yeah, I didn't like that. I think
Yeah.
if you were going to go back to something like that, which I know you're about to tell me that you think that's the way it should be, fine, but you need to have more parties.
No, I don't even think that's the right way to be. Either you reform the primary system because it's broken. I mean, even in the Republican side, you have Iowa, you have New Hampshire. By like the third or fourth primary, pretty much it was either a 2-person race or a 3-person race, and shortly thereafter, it was a 1-person race, even in the Republican, right?
Yep.
And the same thing happened with the Democrats the prior time, right? Buttigieg and Harris dropped out before the first primary, and so something is wrong with that. I mean, I would recommend just like a 2-week or a 3-week total primary season, right? Do many of them on the same day? Why are they focusing so much on Iowa and New Hampshire? Why do those 2 states get to decide really who the candidate is, right?
I'm generally on board with you. I think the argument against that would be the candidates don't get an opportunity to campaign in the states, right? Which is probably less important nowadays with mass media.
Right.
The
You've
internet,
got so many
TV,
methods,
everything.
and it
There's no
cuts down the
message.
amount of money
Yeah.
they have to raise, right?
Because they're
So
saying
maybe
one
you'll
thing
get
in
more
one state
candidates.
and another thing in another state, and in some cases, which is Kamala's already doing, using different dialects, right?
Well, I think part of why they drop out is because they can't raise funds, right? So this would cut down the amount of funds probably they need. I don't know.
Ah, there it is, Kevin. There it is.
It's all about the money.
Think about
right?
all the money CBS, NBC, ABC, whatever
You're-
gets in campaign advertisements throughout the season.
Well, I would say that they should have some free public funding, have debates, right? Have
I'm
televised
with you.
debates during those periods.
Every rep gets $100,000. Every senator gets $200,000. Every presidential candidate gets $1 million. That's all you get. Campaign season. People don't donate any money to you. Spend it as you will. Be done with it.
Because by the time I voted in Wisconsin in April or whatever, it was done, right?
Yep.
Both candidates, there was nobody running against either of them at that point.
We're spending more on probably Secret Service protection from them to run around the country for a year and a half than we would if we just gave everybody $1 million to.
Yeah, so I think that whole thing, because people are like, well, the voice of the people. Well, one, not many people vote in a primary to begin with. It's usually the people who have more extreme views or are more invested in it, right? So you're not even getting that, and I think part of that is because people don't think it matters, right? So if you had it shortened, where people think they could actually pick the candidate, you do like televised debates like right before, that's covered nationally, so everyone could see what everyone's saying. Make them do 3 or 4 like in the run up, and then everyone votes over a 2 or 3 week period. I think that to me would be more democratic, and I feel a lot better about than some elongated primary season that's dragged out, and by the end of it, or fairly early on, there's very few candidates involved anyway. So this whole nonsense, not nonsense, but argument about, well, Kamala wasn't picked by the people and this is undemocratic and whatnot. And I'm like, well, the whole system is kind of messed up to begin with. I agree. I mean, ideally, I'd like to see them
And
do
I get
another
the time
primary.
constraints at this point, which probably shouldn't have happened. And I understand not being able to have a primary now because of the November 2nd date, but I think at minimum there should be some sort of contested convention in front of the American people where other candidates can stand up and say, I deserve this, or I want this, and here's why,
Well,
and fight it out.
nothing's really preventing that, right? I mean, they didn't.
Well, they're about to.
Nobody
they're
stepped
about to
up.
have
Nobody
an
stepped
electronic,
up, right? Nobody stepped up.
No, it's because
Well,
they were
that's the
told
way it
not to. I'm
happens.
completely confident.
That's the way they can step up, right? Somebody could go on TV. Josh Shapiro could go. He could. They would love to have him on MSNBC or CNN, I'm sure, and have him say, "No, I'm running. I want a convention, whatnot." Now, yes, he's part of a party, just like you're part of a corporation or whatever that has certain influences over whether he wants to do that or not, because maybe he wants to run as a Democrat, or maybe he wants the support of the party in his next governor election, whatnot. Yeah, that's just real life, right?
Yep.
There's no way you're ever going to get around that. But the fact of the matter is, nobody else has stepped up and said, I want to run against Kamala. I mean, Joe has endorsed her. I guess Nikki Haley turned all her delegates over to Trump, right?
Yep.
Even though there were only 90 some odd versus whatever Joe has, 2,000 or whatever. The fact is that they were Joe's delegates. They were to vote for Joe, and Joe said, vote for Kamala. I don't think, I mean, I was reading, I don't think they're obligated to do that. I don't think they were obligated necessarily to vote for Joe. I mean, there's nothing, it's not like against the law. They're kind of pledged to him. But again, sort of like the Electoral College, there is some room for movement if something big happens. And I think something big did happen. The guy dropped out of the race and endorsed the other person. So, yes, ideally, I would like some other people to throw their hat in the ring, but this late in the game, I don't know. That raises the question, was this planned all along, right?
Yep. That's the conspiracy theory again.
Again,
Yep.
yeah, another conspiracy. Now, I put a little more weight than that one just because I didn't get the answer from Joe, right? I didn't get an explanation for why he originally ran and what changed to make him change his mind. I'd like to hear that from him. That will help me decide whether they just did this because now Trump's been, from a strategy standpoint, Trump's been thrown a loop, right? They were going to run against Joe.
All the other stuff goes away, right? All that conversation about, first Trump's assassination attempt, that just disappeared.
Yep.
But then also, the border, they're trying hard to get rid of that. That issue, inflation, all that, because Joe's gone. And that's the argument I was making earlier. It goes. I question whether or not he legitimately wanted to stay and believed it, and if he was forced out or not, or if it was planned. It's kind of a toss-up to me. I've been thinking that it's been planned for a long time. You could kind of see this coming. For that very reason, they didn't want to have a primary because it would have been a mess. They don't have necessarily a clear candidate, although I think I'm just guessing in a primary, probably Gavin maybe would have been the front runner. I can't see anybody else maybe beating him.
I mean, I think the Democrats have a good bench. I think the Republicans have a decent bench.
Maybe Bernie would have had a shot at it. I don't know, but the interesting thing there is, was it planned or not? And it seemed like at the end that Biden didn't want to go, which really makes me believe that he was forced out. I'm guessing they told him, this your daughter's diary stuff can become a bigger media story.
What? What you talking about, Bob? What diary stuff?
You
Hold on.
Not read.
Hold on. Back up.
This has been a story out there forever.
What?
His daughter's diary was stolen. Joe Biden's daughter's diary was stolen.
From who? Where? When?
This was years ago. 2-3 years ago.
2-3 years ago.
And
his daughter's diary.
Maybe even longer than that.
This is Ashley,
the
right?
FBI got it back, yes.
The one
in the diary,
the daughter he had with Jill, right?
There are statements about him and being in the shower with her.
What?
I can't believe you haven't read this stuff.
Where would I read
Google
this?
Google.
Is it going to take me down a dark hole, Bob?
It's not It's not. It's not. I mean, it's fact. It's not.
What do you mean
It
it's
just hasn't
fact?
been widely reported.
What's a fact? That is,
Just
the
look up.
diary was stolen?
Yes, the diary was stolen. It was recovered by the FBI.
That sounds like the laptop story, Bob.
It's not that different than the laptop story.
I know.
Then,
Those
I can't believe
Bidens,
you've not heard of that.
those Bidens need to keep better track of their personal items. No, I haven't heard about a diary. Oh, now you're going to make me go look this up.
Quote from her: "I will forever have to deal with the fact that my personal journal can be viewed online," she said to a judge.
So, I guess
will,
that raises the question why a
I'm-
person like me hasn't even heard about it. If it's just so plain and clear, right? Why? I haven't even seen it on Fox. I watch Fox as much as I watch the other channels just to make sure I understand everyone's viewpoint.
There's emails with Joe's son Hunter on his laptop that called Joe Pedo Pete. Did you know that? So you put that together with his daughter's diary, and you start to wonder. You can go ahead and check your text messages right now. It's like,
Uh-oh.
the guy's not a good guy. He's not. He's never been a good guy.
Wait, come on.
In the 80s, he had to drop out of an election.
They just coronated him. He just fell
He
on
had to
his
drop
sword.
out of an election for plagiarizing. And
Well, that's different.
okay.
That's
There's-
different than being a pedophile, Bob.
He has not acknowledged his granddaughter.
This
that
is
exists.
just
He
this
refuses
is just
to
all
acknowledge
just
his granddaughter
alleged.
exists.
Just
He's even quoted the number of his grandchildren, excluding her. That's not a
just
good
to
guy.
be clear, this is all just alleged.
No, it's not alleged.
Oh, come on,
Go
Bob.
find me a video. I can find you a video of Biden referring to his grandchildren without the one that Hunter has. It's not. I mean, it's the truth. He's not a good guy. He's not. He's not a good guy.
Oh, Bob.
I sent you a text message. It's Snopes, so they confirm.
All right.
The diary.
I'll trust Snopes. I don't doubt that the diary was stolen. I'll have to. So somebody's confirmed that this is the diary, and you can actually read it.
Yeah, it was.
All right.
Yeah.
Now you're going to make me read his daughter's diary to see what it actually says. All right. I thought I was going to have an early night tonight.
No, put you to sleep maybe.
Well, anyway, so that's your threatening theory, right? That somebody like, hey,
I'm not saying that the threat
If you-
was that. I'm just throwing out examples, right? It could have been. It could be something that's not even out there in this conspiracy sphere at this point. But
Obama got out the long knives and
you know,
orchestrated this coup.
it could be that. It could be, hey, simple as we're going to 25th Amendment you, right? And as simple as that, which probably wouldn't have looked great for Kamala, made it more difficult. But
I'd like to think it's more simpler. I honestly think he thought he was the only one who could beat Trump. That's originally why he ran the first time, I believe. And he still thought he was the only one. And then between the debate performance, the donors pausing their donations, there was a hard court press to say, yeah, it's not looking too good, Joe. And it took him a while to process that information and say, I might not be the best way to move forward. That's the simple explanation. Or you could get into the diary.
yeah. So stepping back, you said alleged, right, Bob? Of course, it's alleged. I don't know what, not
All
fact. I don't know. It's alleged, but he's not what I would consider to be. Well, he's about on par with a lifetime politician, right? There's a lot of skeletons in the closet there, and
The issue I had with like the whole rollout of the thing, so this is probably one of your biggest announcements ever, right? I understand that he had COVID and all, and I guess he came out Wednesday night, so it was 3 days later. But I would have he dropped it on Twitter, right? He dropped the letter on Twitter, right?
Yep.
Um, and
No
then
video.
no video, and then I guess shortly thereafter he dropped a separate communication about endorsing Kamala, which I always thought was a little. Why wouldn't she just put it in one?
Yeah, well, there was a bunch of immediate stories out there that said, "Notice he didn't endorse Kamala. Notice he didn't
Right?
endorse Kamala." And then right after that, like somebody's like, "Oh,
It was almost like they were testing the waters a little bit, right?
yeah."
To see what the reaction was for not endorsing somebody, and they're
And
like,
I'm
"Oh,
wondering if
we better roll this out." Everyone's asking, so maybe it's
they're
just
testing
weird.
the waters now too. You know, they're waiting to see how the polls kind of move around for Kamala over the next week or two, and then they could make a change to their approach.
Yeah, to me, I'm getting it to her. To me, she's sort of an unproven. I've heard not great things about her from my conservative friends. To me, I don't think she's stupid. Number one, which I've heard. I've heard that she's an idiot. Incompetent. I don't think she's incompetent.
I think I texted you yesterday. I'm like, what is one? I haven't seen one video of her out there speaking that made me think she's saying anything of substance.
She does have an issue with communication. I'll grant you that, and I think that's large. That's going to be a big hurdle for her to overcome if she doesn't start. To me, she's got to sort of perform over the next 4 months. She's got to win people over.
Just what has she done in the last 4 years? I mean, what has
Well,
she delivered? Has she
well,
delivered anything?
she's a vice. She's a vice president.
Right.
I don't expect the vice president to deliver anything. I think they did her a disservice by, quote unquote, making her the border czar, because I don't think she had any authority to solve that issue. Clearly, whatever she did, it wasn't solved and was mishandled. So that was a stupid error on their part. If they were intending on having her run at some point, giving her that assignment, that's something that they're gonna the other side's gonna hammer home, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rightfully, that's just stupid to do that. So I don't, a vice president, I don't expect to do much. She has as I pointed out, I don't think she's lost an election. It's a prosecutor, which I think takes away evidently she's pretty tough on crime in general, which might upset the liberals, but then it
She
takes
kept
away.
people in jail longer and had them working longer than their sentences.
Oh, you're saying the rights are going to complain about how tough she was on crime?
I'm saying that you shouldn't keep somebody longer than their sentences and
All
have
right.
them working and making money for the state.
Well, I hope Trump brings that up in a debate. That will not win very many points, I don't think. So
That's slavery, Kevin. That is slavery. Is
I'm
keeping
guessing
somebody
he's
in
not-
jail and making them work longer than they were.
I'm guessing
sent
he's
for.
not going to bring that up. The guy who supposedly kept kids in cages, but whatever.
If you
I'm
go down to
guessing-
the border now, go see if you find some kids in cages in those same spots, and then go back in
I'm
time
just-
and you can find pictures from the Obama administration of those same facilities with kids in cages.
I'm guessing he's not going to bring that up, though. That's my thing. I don't know whether it's true or not either, but assuming it's true, given that he's been ranting about crime and terrorists and whatever, that I don't think that's probably going to be a good political tact, hitting her for being too tough on crime. So I think that's a good thing. Clearly, as I've been talking to people, so this will be the second election that you have a female candidate running against Donald Trump.
And if Trump wins, she'll have to be the one who certifies the election.
Yeah, which is crazy. Somebody raised that point. Would she have to be the one? I'm like, I don't know who else would be, right?
It would be
I
her.
assume that she has to do it,
Yep.
which then would be interesting because, yeah. But I guess my point is that, not to be inappropriate, but the females of this country, they have an opportunity to elect a female president, right? They had an opportunity with Hillary Clinton, and they're going to have, apparently, an opportunity again with Kamala Harris.
Yeah, they outnumber the men, 51-49 ish.
I will say I voted for Hillary, and right now I'm open to vote for Kamala because of the alternative. But uh, that would be great if some females could join. I know it's not just about gender, but again, that would be kind of a historic thing, right?
Uh,
You don't see that.
I, it would be lots of things could be historic, right? I mean, you could go pick up a drug-addled high school dropout off the street and vote him into the presidency or her, and it would be historic. That doesn't mean it's a good idea.
So we've had 47. This will be the 47th president, right, Bob?
Mm-hmm.
And so far, they've all been males.
Correct.
You look around the world and tell me how many other developed countries have not had a female president.
I'm not
by
saying a
this
female
point.
shouldn't be president. I'm just saying Kamala shouldn't be president.
Well, just like
Yeah,
Hillary.
you can't put
Just like you
Kamala
would
in
say
there
that
just because-
Hillary wouldn't be president.
Well, Hillary was terrible too.
So besides
I'd
Tulsi
argue
Gabbard,
Hillary was smarter than Kamala, in my opinion. Hillary at least had a record of doing things.
I don't disagree. I think Hillary was.
But she had a very corrupt record.
Oh, I don't know about that. I would say she was the most qualified presidential candidate we might have ever seen, given her span of experience. I think the Clintons were generally highly intelligent and political animals. Like that or not, I think they were yes, highly intelligent political animals.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair statement. They were. And they're good at it.
You could call them corrupt and whatnot, but yeah, they're good at it. I don't put Kamala in that. No, I would. If I was going to rank Hillary and Kamala, I would rank Hillary over Kamala at this point. Now, she has 4 months to prove herself, and I'm going to be paying attention to listening to her speeches, seeing how she deals with things. So I'm open to being convinced otherwise, but my initial reaction is Hillary over Kamala. But then again, who would be a female candidate that would be more qualified at this point?
Tulsi.
I don't think Tulsi would. I don't mind Tulsi,
I'd
but
vote
I don't
for
think.
Tulsi.
I know you would. And I don't have any problem with her. I think she's good. I just don't think she has the range of experience to be president of the United States at this point. And I hope she does gather it, but she's not in an elected role right now, and I think she needs to get back in the political realm. So, anything else on Kamala?
She's bad.
She's what?
She's bad. She's a bad candidate.
You think she's a bad candidate?
I
So you think she's worse than Joe? You think it was a step down?
Honestly, there's time for me to form a different opinion, but I think they're right about on par with each other.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I wouldn't disagree. And I think the polling kind of says the same thing.
It does.
But I think she has more opportunity on the upside than Joe did.
It changes, and it's exactly what I said months ago, if not over a year ago. It changes the conversation for the Democrats, and they can try to, say, okay, inflation and things, yeah, Joe's gone, now Kamala's different, and so you can't use that anymore. Or, the borders are thing. I don't know how much you've read the news today, but there's a large portion of the media, including CBS, for instance, and ABC, reporting that she was never the border czar. She was never put in charge of the border. Some of these same organizations, you can go out and find the news stories that they wrote in the headlines saying she was in charge of the border, placed in charge of the border. Some of them call their border czar. There's plenty of tweets out there with Joe put me in charge of the border, or Joe saying Kamala is going to fix the border problems. That kind of stuff. Like, it's amazing all of a sudden the media is just carrying water for her. It's absolutely horrible. I think Axios actually edited their story today to say, because they had a story today saying Kamala was never considered the borders are. And then at the bottom of the story, after they got kind of lit up for it online, they wrote an edit and said, Axios incorrectly reported in 2021 that Kamala was the borders are.
So
You know what I mean?
I would say to that, is there a press conference or an announcement from Joe Biden saying that she's in charge of the border?
Yes. KJP said it, or whoever was in charge at the time. It might have been the other girl, woman,
From a press secretary?
redhead, Psaki.
I wouldn't want to see Joe Biden with Kamala saying, "I'm appointing Kamala to be in charge of the border."
There's definitely a video.
I don't
of Joe
remember if
saying
there
that
is.
out there is.
I
There's
did
video, there's
read.
tweets.
I did read
All
something that recently that her assignment was more talking to Central American countries and trying to work out sort of the cause of the crisis rather than trying to solve sort of immigration policy, because I don't think she has any control over immigration policy. So more of a diplomatic role. I saw that kind of twist recently. I mean, I'll have to go back and see. I don't remember what that role that she was given was, but I kind of generally thought that they placed that on her, which I said a couple minutes ago that I thought was stupid because I don't think there was any intention to solve it. There was no direction, at least from the administration. I know Congress, there was talks about a bill that Trump ended up using his influence to skirt, which we talked about on other podcasts. So I agree. They can hang the border on her. It'll be interesting before we wrap up talking about her potential, because she's going to have to pick a VP soon, right? Any thoughts on? To me, I think all her VP choices probably are stronger than she is,
Yeah,
which is a strange way to look at it, but
I think on top of my head, I think Buttigieg is probably the most likely candidate.
really, I don't think he stands a chance. Although he was on Bill, you see him on Bill Maher?
I did, yeah.
I mean, I still think he's going to be president. I hope he's president of the United States someday. Deb and I were talking about it tonight. I think he needs a little bit more of an edge. He's a little bit too slick a little sometimes, right?
I don't know if he can win a primary. I think he'll
Yeah,
have
I
a
mean,
hard
he
time
needs to
doing that.
grow. He needs to grow into it a little bit more, I think. I think he is. Before he just had quick and good answers. I mean, he's very good on his feet, very, very smart. But I think he needs a little bit, I don't know. There's
He's very Indiana to me. I don't know.
yeah,
how
there's
else to put it.
something. Yeah, there's something more that he needs, and I just called it edge today because I'm like, he
So he should change his last name to like Boot Edge.
Judge it. But anyways, I don't think he's. I think he's in the mix, but I don't think he's in the top of the list. I mean, it sounds like it's Shapiro, Kelly, the astronaut senator from Arizona, and Cooper, the governor of North Carolina.
Kelly's kind of interesting to me. That's not a bad choice.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Kelly. I don't think that's the best choice because he doesn't have sort of any. I mean, he's a fairly recent senator. He's got
Arizona.
He's got the astronaut thing. He's got the military thing. I've never seen him speak too often. He's not really out there as an active senator. You know, he's not appearing on shows too often. So I don't know how much he's been in the public spotlight. I think people know about him because he's Gabby Gifford's husband. Kind of made it through that end of things. But I would say Shapiro would be her best bet. Popular Pennsylvania governor. He's Jewish too.
Yeah, that's the thing though, is she's trying to walk the line between the conflict in the Middle East, which side to pick, you know? So,
yeah,
it's interesting.
But I think they're all pretty good choices for her. So I think if she stays within that group.
Yeah, and again, I think it's still questionable whether or not she's the actual candidate.
Oh, you're still not.
I'm not.
You still
convinced.
think there's going to be some more drama here, huh? I should question you because you've been almost dead on since the whole thing. You're the you could look into the crystal ball. So you don't think it's done yet?
I don't.
Oh.
I don't think it's done yet. I'm not saying she's not going to be the one. I just think they're testing the waters on her, and they're kind of trying to wait to see what the polls do after things settle a little bit. Um, I,
I mean, that would make sense, right? Because if she's falling flat, why would you, given that you have a convention coming up, why would you go with her, right?
right.
Um, if she starts dropping or starts losing support, at least for the initial couple days, like you said, maybe the media's in the bag with her because if you turn on MSNBC or CNN, it's like everything's going great, right?
And to me too, and not to put too much emphasis on this on his thoughts, but has Obama endorsed Kamala yet?
No, he has not.
So I mean, and again, as a former president, sometimes decorum might say you stay out of it a little bit, but Obama has not said anything really about Kamala, which makes me just kind of wonder, like, is he? You know what I mean? I'm not one of these guys who thinks Obama's running the show behind the scenes. I really am not. I don't think so. But I think it says a lot that he said nothing. He said stuff about Joe, and Joe's stepping down, and how he supports Joe in it, and he appreciates Joe, and this and that. He said nothing about Kamala. And there's all kinds of rumors online that the reason he hasn't said anything about Kamala is because he doesn't think Kamala can win. So that to me, and you know what I mean? If tomorrow at noon Obama says he supports Kamala, my opinion will probably change. But until then, I'm going with it's not a done deal yet. They're kind of seeing how she does.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. They're making it appear to be a done deal because that's how you get support and that's how you get
Yep.
the money raised and everything. But if she falls flat for whatever reason before the convention, I don't put it past them to trade out,
Right.
which would be very interesting. I don't see that happening, but I guess it's in the realm of possibility. But you've been calling it all along, so I'll follow your lead.
Well, I'm not saying I hope I'm right or I'm wrong, other than to look right, I guess. But that just, I mean, from my perspective, I don't like Kamala. I'd like a better candidate out there. Find me a good candidate, that way, in my perception, we get better no matter who wins.
No, she would not be my choice. I do think. Yeah, I mean, I guess. I mean, other than Joe being just old and having 4 years on top of that, I don't necessarily think he would have completed his second term. Um, so I'd rather have somebody who's going to do that run. I can't say I'm excited about her. If she does a good VP choice, I guess I'd be more excited. But they say VP shouldn't matter. Um, I don't know. I don't know. I would have liked to seen a primary, right? That would have been the ideal.
I would have liked it.
That would have been the ideal situation, but that's why I wanted the answers from Joe.
And
Why didn't I get a primary?
when's the last time the Democratic convention was so late in the year?
Yeah, it is late. That's
I mean,
for sure.
it leads, it provides support to the theory that this was all planned.
That they knew there was going to be a
They-
late.
Yep,
late.
they knew it, and they didn't want to have the primary. Maybe they wanted to kind of wait things out to see how Joe was polling and give themselves time for
They set up the debate early, right?
Yep.
There's never debates before the convention,
seems-
so they
it
set
seems
up a
pretty
debate.
planned out.
They set up a debate before the convention to see how he did. He didn't do well, so then I mean, it does lead into the theory, right?
Yep.
You gotta look. You gotta. Outside of any other evidence, that you gotta say, this does seem to line up with the theory, but we'll see what happens. I'm sure everything will change in another 2 weeks.
Yeah, I don't even know if we've covered everything. So much happened in the last two weeks or so.
Yeah, it seems like we're leaving off something big, but
It's crazy.
well, I think the only other major thing was that Trump's documents case got dropped, right?
Yeah, that's
I
a
don't
big
know
one.
if that'll hold, but it does. It was part of his winning streak, I guess. They called the winning streak also the bullet missing him, which I thought was a weird
Yeah.
way to say that he was winning.
He-
But
he-
do you
and,
think it was
Bill
divine
Maher said it, and
intervention?
he's so
Do you
right,
think
it
it was
won't-
divine intervention?
No.
Okay, I just
mean-
wanted to check.
So yeah, God came down and he moved the bullet towards a firefighter instead of Trump. You know, I don't know. I mean, although you could consider what kind of chaos that could have potentially thrown the country into, and then maybe there'd be reason for divine intervention in that case. But
Yeah, it's like I said, it's sort of weird that nobody talked about what would have. In all the discussion, I never heard anyone like, what if this actually did happen? What the hell? What the hell would have
do you
happened?
believe the amount of luck that it took for him not to get hit?
Oh my
And,
God.
like, the guy was so close with a high-powered rifle,
It's crazy.
and he missed with like 6 shots or something, 6 or 8 shots.
Yeah.
It's just like that image of Trump getting up, putting his fist in the air with the American flag over his head, blood dripping down his face.
Yeah, you couldn't make it up if you thought about it, right?
I would not have been able to do that if my ear just got shot. I can tell you that. I mean, I know this. He knew the shooter was down, right?
Well, here's the thing.
But
Somebody was telling me they were talking to people in the law enforcement and whatnot, and they're like, the protocol is you don't let him get up at all, right? Really, because just because you have one shooter down doesn't mean there's not another shooter out there, right?
Yep.
So they shouldn't have let him get up at all.
no.
Yeah, and be exposed. I heard kind of the
But you look at the people that were around him; they were all smaller than him.
they couldn't stop him. He's an unstoppable force.
There's, I mean, and there's videos of some of the Secret Service agents out there with dancing around, looking which way, and not sure. There's audio of them saying, "Where are we going? Where are we going? Where are we going?" I think that event did more to harm DEI than a lot of things have in the past too. It's
What do you say, Bob?
You got
What do you
this video
say,
of
Bob?
This lady,
Oh,
she's like half Trump size.
Yeah, I
She's trying
saw
to
her.
holster
Yeah.
her gun. She
Yeah.
can't get it in the holster, and she's messing. Finally, she gives up, and she just holds it in front of her, and just
It did
like,
look a little Keystone Cop-ish.
it looked
Yeah,
Reno 911-ish. Like,
yeah.
what do you? What the? I
It
don't
wasn't
know,
a
man.
good look.
Just unbelievably like ridiculous, and it's bad leadership. I mean, I guess that's what it comes down to. Whether it's incompetence or something more sinister, it's bad leadership. And that's why we need to get rid of. We need term limits. We need to get rid of lifelong bureaucracy, bureaucratic positions. There's a lot of things that need to get done.
There you go. Bring it back all around.
There we go.
Well, that was a lot of fun, Bob.
I agree.
I think this is the most unscripted we've ever done, and just because there was just so much to talk about.
But
I don't know.
I didn't
I don't
do an
think
ounce
we-
of prep.
I don't think we added anything to the conversation.
No. It was fun, though. I mean, if you think back to when we started this, and it wasn't that long ago, I would have never dreamed we would have a podcast this full of stuff that happened in such a short period of time.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's like you said, I think we started the year saying that this was going to be a crazy year, and it's been crazier than I originally thought.
We still got about 3-4 months to go, right?
Yeah, hold on, everyone, buckle in.
Stay tuned.
We'll be here. All right,
All right.
talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.